Hello, and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and with me in the Rabbit Hole studio today, he is the director of the Netflix feature See You Yesterday, Mr. Stefan Bristol. Welcome, Stefan.
How you doing, sir? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. You've been on the junket. You have been all over. I saw you IndieWire and a few other different places that have had you on, and I appreciate you coming down here and spending a half an hour with me because God knows you're probably exhausted talking about this movie. But this I guarantee will be the best interview that you've had.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so want to talk about the film and how everything came about, but first I want to talk about you. We interviewed you briefly at Bushwick Film Festival. Was the first time we met you. You talked to Ilaria Malvizzi on the red carpet of Bushwick. But now we got a lot more time. We got more than like a minute. So tell me about you. Like, how did you get into filmmaking, and what is your origin story, so to speak?
I've always been into filmmaking, man. When I was a kid, growing up Coney Island before I moved out to Long Island, just watching, TV shows, my favorite movie like Jurassic Park and them. But when I was 18 and I wanted to do something for my life, I saw Do the Right Thing for the first time, and I told my mom I want to be a filmmaker, because that movie was just like everything to me, and she was not having it. She's a Caribbean woman, and I love her, and she's my biggest fan now.
Yeah, I imagine she is.
Right, and she wasn't having it, so I just had to try to figure out what else I want to do in my life. But when I went to Morehouse College, I woke up one day, and I said, I'm going to pursue what I really wanted, and that's filmmaking. What
was it about Do the Right Thing that kind of, because there's a lot of movies that could, people, Star Wars, but what was it specifically about that film that kind of like lit your pilot light, so to speak?
It was mostly about Brooklyn and what it meant for me as a kid. And like everything I saw Do the Right Thing was just me as a kid.
You saw your life up there.
Yeah, I saw my life up there. This is why I grew up in Brooklyn, and this is crazy. And
I love Do the Right Thing. It was not necessarily my life. I didn't,
right.
But it's a great movie, and
it's classic. From first frame to the last, it was just like
we could actually probably do a whole show on Do the Right Thing. And you worked this movie, See You Yesterday. Yeah. Great title, by the way. Love the title. So you worked. Spike Lee was a producer on this. Speaking of Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
So how did this come about? Like, first of all, tell us about the movie. Like, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, or like, give me the Hollywood like log line for the picture.
Oh, easy. It's about two scientific teenage prodigies from Brooklyn, New York, who build time machines to go back in time and to save one of their brothers from being wrongfully killed by a police officer.
So we're going to get into challenges because the movie itself, I've seen the movie, I really liked it, and I love the kids in it. Who are the stars of it? Tell me the
Eden Duncan Smith and Dante Critchlow. Not Eden, Eden.
Eden. Great kids. I think cast perfectly.
Thank you, man.
And I also think one of the things I really liked about it is something you don't see in films.
Yeah.
You don't often see young people of color who are into science unless it's like a superhero movie or something.
Yeah.
But like this, I just thought it was great. So that's what the movie is about. But like, how did it come? Like, how is it? What inspired it? And like, how did you kind of get it from the page to screen, so to speak?
I was a thesis student at NYU Graduate Film School, and I wanted to go back to my roots of why I became a filmmaker, and that's the action-adventure genre. And I just wanted to do something with black people in that genre. And I was working on a time travel movie about, a kid trying to save his best friend through a drunk driving accident. And when I was writing that, I was during the summer of 2014 where Eric Garner and Mike Brown got murdered, and that led to my script. And a professor saw that in the script, and she was like, listen, that part in the script is one small part about police brutality. Is either you leave it in or take it out. And I decided to leave it in because I knew, unfortunately, wrongful cop killings is going to continue.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago, and the movie's sadly topical today.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so... And to me, it presents some interesting challenges, right? Because you've got a time travel movie, which tonally is pretty fun.
Mhm.
Like these kids, they're great kids, and it's a pretty upbeat movie.
Right.
It's also, I like the color palette of it a lot because
Thank
it's
you.
bright and it's like summer in the city, and
Yeah.
it's so freaking Brooklyn. Like it's just like, because I live here, and I'm like, man, this movie is the most Brooklyn movie I've seen in a long time. And the kids seem like they're real, like they seem like real kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they're super geniuses who make time machine backpacks, and there's a science fiction element to it, but they seem like real kids. And
Yeah.
so, like, how do you, first of all, from the script stage, you're going to do this thing where you have time travel, which is challenging,
Yeah.
and then you're going to deal with this difficult subject matter.
Yes.
So, like, how do you combine the two of those things and have a cohesive movie? Because I think a lot of people would probably give you notes on tone and be like, hey, man, you can't have Back to the Future mixed with, cop killing. Like, it's, and the murder. Like it feels like it's polar opposite, but somehow in the movie it blends. How are you able to kind of attack that on a story level?
Easily. Okay, it's not easy. It's a lot of trial and error. That's all it is. It's like you work with the first draft and you go from there. And I guess because I have a lot of training in directing actors and know how to write a screenplay, I was able to know how to craft a scene and know how to use humor. Humor is not comedy, but humor is there to keep the lightheartedness going during a tragedy. And
because that's like life too.
It is life.
Yeah,
like it's real life. And
people laugh at funerals. People do. There's a mixture of that. Even in the darkest times, people still make jokes, and still people.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. You don't see it a lot in movies.
No.
But the reason I think you don't see it in a lot of movies is some executive giving you story notes and saying you can't have a funeral and humor and time travel.
Well, here's the thing. When I first started out making this film, I did not imagine it would go to Netflix. Really? No, this was not a Netflix movie. It was not even a studio movie. It was a totally independent film that I was going to do. I did the short film independently. And I was struggling to get the money. My mother, she helped with some cash. She refinanced her home. Oh my God! To give me some cash for the short. Spike gave me a production grant through NYU, and I was not, when Spike picked up the feature version and said, "Hey, Stephanie, want me to be a producer?" I said, "Sure, no problem." I was expecting to use his name to just get financing from investors, but he decided to say, "Stephanie, this is a studio movie." And I was like, what? I was like, hey, if you can go to people and do that, sure. It's like, it wasn't ever a question like, why do you miss these genres? This is so weird tone. I was like, nah, if black people were going to be in sci-fi, we're going to talk about our pain. And, the other thing, too, is like in a friend of mine. Well, in my opinion, excuse me. Yeah, hey, this is all your opinion. Don't worry about it. That comes with the territory. But what I think is unique as well is you see it in the film, and you don't see this in a lot of films. A friend of mine pointed this out about the movie Black Panther. Mm-hmm. He was saying it was something. Great movie. He was saying that, like, in that film, you see black people being the answer to their own problems, which you don't often see in film. You always see like an outsider coming in to kind of save them, or and that had a time and its place. But I think now we're getting into the more heroic stories, and this is like the thing I liked about this movie. And I would watch your movie over a Black Panther because nobody arrives in a super suit to save these people. You know what I mean? Like. Particularly the main character, the girl, she's saving herself and she's trying to save her brother, and and you don't see that often, which is great. Wow. Talk to me about, because story wise, but story wise are challenges like time travel, which creates its own paradox, and then you're trying to make like a Back to the Future or Terminator. There's always those types of problems. Right. But talk to me about the actual like getting this movie off the ground. You talked a little bit about the financing, but. Sure. For instance, like the production schedule. How many days did you have to film this thing? A production schedule easily is 25 days. Okay. And for a filmmaker just coming from school, that's a blessing. People say that's short or limited. And I was like, man, I was expecting 2 weeks.
Yeah, you see that a lot of times too.
Right, but I was but I had a training. I had a feature film training before this. I was one of Spike's assistants on Black Klansman.
Very cool.
So I was able to see how pre-production work and how production work. I didn't see how post-production work because I was busy trying to make this movie.
Sure.
So it was like 4 weeks of soft prep. That means you're hiring crew, you're hiring the department heads like production designer, sound mixer,
or you're below the line people.
Yeah. All the departments, the costume designer. You're interviewing people, you're hiring them, and then it's the hard 6 week out. You have 6 weeks of prep, and every day is like you got to be on it.
You know, I have people come on the show and they're like, we did a feature in 12 days, we did a feature in 15 days. 25 days for
impressive.
A Hollywood film is like, oh my God, that's really short. But for us indie folk, that's like I got an extra 10 days to make this movie. No problem, man.
No problem. And I say this because like the reason why we have in Hollywood to have that is because of union rules. Yeah. And for independent films, there's no union.
Right.
So you can, and it's low budget. So it depends on the script and what the script calls for. If it's just it's about just two people talking in a room, you don't need 25 days to shoot that.
Right.
But for my film, it's an action film that deals with time travel and whatnot. I need that 25 days.
Yeah, you worked with all the fun stuff. So you got kids in the movie, you got young people, you've got special effects that you're dealing with, and then you've got a subject matter that's touchy.
Yeah.
I was saying to you before we rolled, I was like, did you want to just like get all of the challenges out in one go? Like first movie, that's it, man. I'm just gonna take on the mountain of challenges and do it all at once.
I was confident to pull it off because I have the training. I've seen how Spike did it on for Black Klansman.
I mean, if you're gonna watch somebody, he's a pretty good, and he teaches as well. So
he teaches at NYU. He's a tenure now, and I was like, when I was watching, he's smooth like butter. You can't even, he doesn't break a sweat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he every day he knows exactly where to put the camera. He knows exactly how to talk to the actors or how to deal with them.
Well, he's been doing this for like 30-something years, so
that's you
can't expect to be Spike Lee your first day.
I tried too. Silly me. I'm an idiot for trying to be like Spike, and I learned quickly. Okay, I learned quickly. I was like, I gotta find my own rhythm.
Exactly. And it's good to have that. I think it's good to have that sort of like, well, for instance, he was on the picture with you, right? Now he's listed as a producer, but I don't know if he was more of an exec producer or if he's there day to day. How involved was he with the picture, and how much was he able to like sort of mentor you while you're making the movie, or was it just like, hey kid, you got it, go make your movie kind of thing?
It's a mix. I will be honest with you. He read every draft, and he was there to have me meet with the executives, and he was there to make sure that we're working on the script. But he let me do what I feel that is best for the movie. He was like, "Hey, this is your movie, do your thing." And he was shooting She's Gotta Have It season 2 at that time. So he was never on set.
I see.
He was set on for one day. That was the first day. But other than that, even when he wrapped She's Gotta Have It, he would still not come to set. He would just allow me to do what I want to do.
I mean, I think that's great because, especially as a young filmmaker, it's great to have.
He trusted me.
It's great to have that trust and empowerment, but it's also great to have somebody who's like kind of got your back when it comes to the executives and sort of helping you along creatively without kind of letting the system stifle you or letting the business of filmmaking getting in the way of filmmaking like it often does in Hollywood.
I still had to deal with that.
Yeah, tell me if you like. Lessons. I would imagine because you'd made shorts before this, but this is your first feature.
Yeah.
And going through the whole process. I mean, so first like just getting the movie made, and then going to the process with Netflix and getting it released. what were the kind of things that you learned along the way? Because this is your first time through this process, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine it's a huge learning experience for you.
It's fast too.
Yeah, you got to like hit the ground running. You know,
like I said, like I didn't imagine I was gonna be just a studio film. I was like, okay, we're gonna make a Ricky Dinky film, just to show who I am, and hopefully a lot of people see it, and then I'll figure out my next move. Because I have something very strong to say, I have something specific to say, and I just needed to get this movie out.
sometimes I think it's a matter of timing.
Yeah.
You know, and you had because sci-fi is really big right now, and and the subject matter is very topical. So
Yeah.
you were able to kind of hit two buttons of both genre and social significance at the same time,
Yeah.
which not a lot of movies can do. This is really sort of a magic bullet of a movie in that way.
I was just when there's a will, there's a way. I know that this was the film for me, and I had a mission, and I believed in myself. I had faith. I'm a faith-based person, and I just wanted to do what I want to do.
I feel like I've probably said this on the show before, but like being a filmmaker is almost like being a clergyman or something. Like you have to have this like unshakable belief in yourself and your abilities, and like, is what I'm believing in real? And most people don't know until it happens to them.
Speaking on that, I made a lot of sacrifices to get this film off the ground. I have cried. I have, sometimes I had to get off Twitter because, I was cussing people out when I was supposed to not be cussing people out on Twitter, because I take it personally because they don't understand the amount of stress and fatigue and helplessness sometimes just to get this movie off the ground. Have I got it a lot easier than a lot of filmmakers? Sure, and I'm not gonna deny that. But I still had to make sacrifices. I couldn't get a full-time proper job. I had to ask my mom to help me pay rent. There's a lot of things I had to give up for just to make this movie that I can't name. Not to say it's terrible, but it does challenge. It does challenge me, and now I'm glad it made me grow. But if me and you are like alone right now, bro, I will break down and cry.
I think
I'm
that's
not even lying to you. It's like
not a lot of people talk about that, and it's glad that you said something. I have this conversation kind of with myself daily about doing this, and everyone's oh my God, I had somebody say to me, I was talking shop with a producer friend of mine, and randomly there was like a DP overheard us in a bar, and he's like, "You guys are absolutely right." and he told me, he's like, my uncle, who is also in the business, he's like, this job, it's like you're either going to do this or you're going to die trying, because you have to do it to the point of like nothing else in your life is going to make you happy, and it comes down to that, and and even someone like you, I mean, you got what a lot of people would assume is a lucky break.
Yes.
Which is great, and
but I was prepared for it though. Like I worked my ass off to be prepared for it.
Exactly.
Let's not get it.
You really do make your own luck in this business, because if you hadn't made the short, if you didn't speak to the right people, if you if you weren't talented, because Spike Lee teaches at NYU, he's got a lot of students. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, and God knows he knows enough people. But there must have been something special about you and what you wanted to say that made him say, "I want to produce that movie." That's, you don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
I mean, he hasn't knocked on my door yet. By the way, I want to get him on the show. If you talk to him, he's definitely he's the guy he's my gold guest that I want to get on the show, because there was no one more indie film than Spike Lee, in my opinion.
That's
He's
true.
the most indie dude out there, and he's still rocking it. But I think the movie for the most part, it's a real achievement.
Thank you.
You talked about the sacrifice, but what were the things that, is there anything that you learned that you would, if somebody said, "Hey man, Stefan, you made that great movie, I'm going to make my first feature. What advice would you give me? What would you tell somebody who's trying to make their first feature, other than, you're going to have to practically kill yourself in order to make it? What would you tell somebody?
Take your time. Don't rush.
Don't rush into production. In other
Don't
words,
rush. Don't rush on the script. Don't rush on trying to get. Well, depending on the script, I had to rush to get into production of mine, for various reasons. But when it comes to making the script, just writing, don't rush on that.
I think probably the number one thing that I've seen in people's work that was like, it's just undercooked scripts. Scripts that they hadn't stayed long enough in the oven. They brought them out too fast. They wanted to rush to production. Yeah. And I've said to people, you can't out direct bad writing. You can't out act bad writing. No, you can't outrun bad writing. Man, it's one of those things where you
can't polish doodle.
Yeah, it's and people try to do it all the time, and they don't usually realize until they're really far down the stretch, until they're like in mid-production, like, oh my God, and then, you're trying to save the thing in rewrites while you're going, and it's just a nightmare to try to get the film off. But that's a great thing. I think the fact that you had because you had already, you'd been building on this foundation for a while. You've been working it for a while and working on the idea and getting feedback. And feedback, that's another important thing that a lot of people don't get.
A lot of feedback.
Yeah, I mean, and you're working with somebody like Spike Lee, who's, because this script...
And I didn't get feedback just from him. I had to, beg and ask professors to look at it, and I had to do a table reads.
Sure,
with the actors.
But
that's a good trick for filmmakers.
What's that? Do a table read?
Do a private table read. Don't invite friends. Don't have an audience. Invite actors that are kind of like the type of those characters, but you're not going to cast them.
Right.
Because if you invite actors that are exactly like that type, they expect you to cast them in a movie, and you don't want that, because the purpose of the table read is to hear it, because you need to hear it. Like, once you get the script into a really good draft,
see if the music is there. In other words,
exactly. Yeah. And
I've done that
really,
often myself, and it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing anything with comedy in it, because you got to hear comedy's like music, man. You really got to hear it, otherwise, jokes are gonna fall flat, and and you also get the reaction of the actors.
Yeah.
You get, are they getting it? Are they getting the vibe of it? Are they getting the tone of it? And you can either take their feedback or not. You can just be like, thanks very much. And then, but you can sit there and make notes. That's a great tip, is to do a table read. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. So you're just finishing up this thing right now, and it's currently on Netflix. Do you see yourself moving into the next project at this point? Or are you do you want to get right going on the next thing?
I have to get on the next thing. I keep the momentum up.
Right, exactly. That's another good lesson, is when your sophomore effort, if you're too busy making it, people won't criticize it. Robert Rodriguez said that. He's like, if you don't want the sophomore jinx, or you don't want to worry about people always criticizing your sophomore effort, he's like, start making it before the buzz dies on your first one, and then get that one out there, and then while that's going, make the next one, because you won't give them time, and this way you'll have that. You like you said, momentum. Like it matters, and when you lose momentum, it's so hard to get back. It's so hard to keep. Somebody described independent filmmaking as pushing a boulder up a hill. And it rolls over you. Then you go back to the bottom of the hill, and you push it back up again. It's
weird because I'm pushing myself to get something new started now, but at the same time, it's like I need a break.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just got to refill the well too. You got to re-energize and stuff. You should probably go away for a long weekend or something at least.
I'm trying to, but I have to do this. I have to go there. Which is great. It's like it's not. It's this.
No, but this is part of the work too, man.
Exactly.
This is it's not just enough to make the movie, but to get butts and seats to see the movie, or to get the attention for the movie. Yeah. And that's another thing. People think your directing job stops as soon as the movie's edited. It's no, then the second half begins. It's like you don't stop a football game at halftime. you gotta push it to
real talk.
Third quarter, fourth quarter, get it to the end zone, man.
Yeah, that's real talk.
But thanks so much for coming, man.
It's a pleasure to be
for
here.
People who are interested, and people who want to find out more about you, where can they find you on the web?
On Instagram at StefonBristol.com. That's an STEFON, Bristol.com, not a PH.
Gotcha. So everybody remember that and follow this cat. He's doing amazing things, and the movie's doing really well. And then, next project, come on down. We'll talk about it, man. I'd love to have you.
That's solid.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you all for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more episodes of this show, you can always find them on our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. You can also find us on all the podcast channels, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Stefan Bristol. Thanks for coming back home to Brooklyn. And for Behind the Rod Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.